At the end of the last episode, I used Sublime Bone Dust here at the bonfire in Majula. The Sublime Bone Dust is actually a very helpful item, as it increases the maximum HP your Estus Flask heals for. The Sublime Bone Dust reads, "They say these are the remains of a saint who cast himself into the bonfire, but we will never know for sure, for soot and ashes tell no story." Now, the most popular theory for this is the saint mentioned in this text is actually Lord Gwyn, from the first Dark Souls, the Lord of Sunlight, who became Lord of Cinder when he linked the First Flame. And through the First Flame, he strengthened the power of the bonfires, and in turn strengthened the power of the Estus Flasks. Now, this isn't 100% confirmed, as it is very possible there is some other saint in the series lore who is responsible for this, but given that this saint is implied to be male, I'm pretty sure it's Lord Gwyn. I believe there are 5 total Sublime Bone Dusts in the game, allowing you to reinforce your Estus Flask to +5. And given the challenges in the later half of the game, we're going to need all the help we can get. So I'll do my best to seek these out.
What is it? I don't know you, and you don't know me. Things are better that way. Normally, people keep a safe distance when they see this mask. But you... I'm called Lucatil. From the land of Mira to the far east, across the mountains. They say Drang Lake brims with powerful souls. And so I came to claim my share. But what a strange place. Even the rumors did not prepare me. You are an odd one indeed. I've always made a point of avoiding people, while you've made a point of engaging me. I can see that you are mid-journey. If you require assistance, I will help you. I come from Mira, a land of knights. My sword is always ready. Don't hesitate to call upon me. Whatever happens, I won't be missed.
So now we've met one of my favorite characters in the Dark Souls series, Lucatil of Mira. Lucatil kind of fulfills the role of Solaire from the first Dark Souls. She's a character you can summon for many of the game's boss fights, and she has a very interesting side story. Lucatil came to Drang Lake from the land of Mira, a land renowned for its warriors. And we'll learn more about her past and her reason for being here as we continue her story. The way to progress her story is to find her in each of the locations she appears in, as well as having her survive 3 of the 4 boss fights you can summon her for. There is a boss fight here in No Man's Wharf that she'll help us out with, and it won't be long before we run into her once again. The Viking-like enemies we're fighting here in No Man's Wharf are known as the Varangians, pirates who used to roam the great seas around Drang Lake. The Varangian sword reads, "Straight sword wielded by Varangians and engraved with a skull." A former king launched a campaign to capture these terrors of the high seas, but rather than imprison them, forced them into hard labor at No Man's Wharf. The king, racked with fear and suspicion, began to see the progenitor of the curse in anything and everything. During his reign, sorcerers in particular suffered dreadful persecution. Now, it doesn't exactly say who this king was who forced the Varangians into hard labor, but my best theory is that it is the Old Iron King. Now, the Old Iron King despised the undead, and would deliberately seek them out and either kill them or force them into slavery, like the Varangians here. The Old Iron King had a great fear of the curse and the undead, as it is something that plagued his kingdom in the later half of his rule. However, it is possible that this is King Vendrick, as he is someone who also feared the curse of the undead. But given that it says a former king, I believe it's more likely that it's the Old Iron King. It is entirely possible it's someone else, but that's my best theory.
I knew you'd be back. Thank you kindly.
Oh, I'd given you up for dead. Almost had me worried, really. You'll need souls. I know only of... Don't waste your soul. I'll be around.
The main purpose of No Man's Wharf was to corral the undead and take them to the Lost Bastille by boat, and the Varangians we find here probably helped in this movement. There is some more interesting stuff about the Varangians, something that is revealed in their armor set. The Varangian set reads, "Armor worn by Varangians that terrorize nearby seas. The coastline stretches far into northern Drang Lake. Beyond this northern sea is an unexplored continent, said to be the home of things inhuman." Now, it's not stated if the Varangians come from this unexplored continent, but the fact that there's another great landmass outside of Drang Lake is very fascinating, and it makes me curious if it's one of the other locations we explore, like Aleum Lois, or maybe it's something from the first Dark Souls or the third game, or something else entirely. It's very interesting to think about. It also says it's a place of things inhuman, which really gets the gears turning, as even some of the creatures we find here in Drang Lake are really twisted and monstrous foes, so I can only imagine what these creatures in the northern unexplored continent look like. So while the Varangians pillaged and looted in their early days, they ultimately met a very sad fate here in No Man's Wharf, and I can't help but feel a little sorry for them. Many of you who have played Dark Souls 2 probably already know this, but for those of you who don't, if you use the Pharos Lockstone here in No Man's Wharf, you can light up this giant lantern which illuminates the entire area. Not only does this make it a bit easier to get around, but it also permanently scares off the Darkstalker enemies you fight in the upper parts of the wharf. These Darkstalkers are a bit enigmatic. The only thing I can gather from them is that they have a great fear of fire, but they can even overcome that fear when they enter that berserker rage of theirs. The other interesting thing of note of the Darkstalkers is that they tend to drop the Pyromancer set, which is very odd, I must say. This item drop might imply that these creatures were at one point Pyromancers, but given their fear of flame, I'm not entirely sure of that. They do, however, do bleed damage up the wazoo, so you have to be very careful around them. They're a unique and bizarre enemy, though, and I think they're actually unique to No Man's Wharf, as I don't think you run into them anywhere else in the game. They live in the dark and fear the flame, suggesting that they have maybe some tie to humanity, as humanity in the Dark Souls universe stems from the dark.
Who are you? I, Gavlan. Gavlan wheel, Gavlan deal. Gavlan wants soul. Many, many soul. What you want? With Gavlan, you wheel, you deal.
So we just met one of the other fun merchants in this game, Lonesome Gavlan. Gavlan is a man of very few words. He mostly just likes wheeling and dealing, but he can be a very useful buddy as you can sell any unwanted items to him and get some souls in return. He also sells the Ring of Giants, which is great for heavy builds as it gives you more poise, and he also sells a plethora of poison items like throwing knives, poison moss, and so on. He's a pretty fun character, and we'll run into him several more times before he takes up permanent residence at an area known as the Doors of Pharos. So don't worry, Gavlan, more wheeling and dealing in the future.